So the Annie E. Casey Foundation works on three areas primarily. Number one, we work on issues of poverty. Number two, we work on issues of helping young folks to grow up in families that are strong and can support them. And third, we work on issues of community, ensuring that communities are good places to raise children. So the main increase in poverty for kids over the last 30 years is really the reduction in economic opportunity for their parents. And we've got three things that come together here. Number one, there has been a huge change in technology. And so whereas again you were able in the old days to survive and actually do quite well with relatively low technical skills, that's no longer the case. Secondly, as everybody knows, many of the jobs, manufacturing jobs and others that formerly were held by people with relatively low skills or low educational levels, those jobs, not all of them, but many of them have left the country. And finally, the American economic engine is driven by productivity. And in fact, many companies have become more productive, which by definition means they're able to get more productivity with fewer workers. You put all that together and you have a very large percentage of the American workforce which is now undertrained, underskilled, and without the opportunities to make money. All these folks, or many of these folks, have children. And in fact, that increases the odds that children are going to be growing up either in poverty or without the economic security that's so important to child development. I think the Occupy Wall Street movement is just an expression of a deep worry, a deep anxiety, and some anger that the traditional sense of the American dream feels like it's slipping away to many people. And what that means is you used to be able to look your child in the eye and say, you know what, if you work hard, if you use the talents that you have, you're going to be successful. Because look at me, I've been able to work my way up. And again, increasingly, that appears to be less and less the case. And I think that's kind of the deep-seated anxiety that not only the folks who are actually directly involved in the Occupy Wall Street movement are expressing, but also why it's kind of taken hold with the kind of media coverage and reaction we're getting from the general public, that although they may not agree with everything that gets said in one of these Occupy Wall Street movements, they certainly agree that we seem to be on the wrong path and we need to do something about it. You know, I think there are such a wide range of concerns that are being raised by people who show up at Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Oakland, etc. kind of events. I think it's hard to say whether one agrees with all of them or not. I do think that there is a, again, deep-seated sense that somehow or another the rules of the game have changed and it just isn't as fair as people thought that it was or think that it should be. Having said that, I don't know that the specific ideas that are being raised by the folks involved in Occupy Wall Street and similar kinds of movements really are addressing the deeper structural issues that we have to take on. The reality is we have got to simultaneously do something about poverty today, and we've got to put children on a path towards economic success and to building the kinds of both technical skills and intellectual and cognitive skills that they need to be successful tomorrow. That's a much tougher challenge than simply saying, well, we ought to tax banks more or tax corporations more or tax wealthy individuals more. As much as that may be an expression of a sense that things aren't fair, it doesn't really address the more fundamental structural problems that I think we have to take on. It troubles me greatly for a number of reasons. Number one is that, in fact, as we've said all along, children who grow up in poverty or in low-income families tend to have poorer outcomes. And when you start to talk about 44, 45, almost 50% of families where children are not economically secure, then that's a huge proportion of the population to essentially leave on the sidelines while we're trying to become more globally competitive. So that's a big source of concern. But even in some ways more importantly than that, this is a country that is founded on the basic idea of opportunity. This is what brought this country together in the first place. This is something we've always been incredibly proud about. And to see us now slipping down compared to other similar industrialized countries in Europe, for example, to see us having less social mobility, economic mobility, in essence less opportunity from similar countries around the globe ought to concern us greatly. I don't think this is a conservative issue or a liberal issue or a Republican issue, a Democratic issue. It's not an ideological issue. It's really an issue about what this country is all about. And as I've read and talked to folks across the entire ideological spectrum, many, many people are concerned. This is an area where I think we can come together and say, what do we need to do to put opportunity more to make opportunity more available to all of the children in this country by working with their families and helping put them on a path towards success. Well, I think we've got a number of opportunities as foundations. Clearly, it's a hugely privileged position to be working in a sector which has the kind of resources that philanthropy has and has the kind of flexibility and freedom to devote not only the financial resources but the time and attention over a long period of time to making a difference. Again, the Casey Foundation is focusing primarily on trying to contribute, along with many, many others, to reducing the odds that a child's going to grow up poor, increasing the odds that the child's going to grow up in a strong family, and increasing the odds that they're going to be in a community that in fact is a good place to raise children. Specifically, I think foundations ought to be partnering both with the public sector and with the private sector and the nonprofit sector as one of the forces that is pushing for positive change. On the government side, I think it's important for foundations to be encouraging government to invest in things that work and to stop investing in things that don't work. So foundations can play a very critical role both in supplying the data about that as well as providing ideas about how to scale up those things that work well. On the private sector, clearly the corporate world, the for-profit world has a huge role to play in all the things that we've been talking about, and foundation boards and foundations as institutions have the access to these folks to bring them into the conversation as well. And then of course foundations are a huge funder in the nonprofit sector, and we need to be working together, nonprofit sector, foundation sector, working together to come up with solutions to these problems.